everyone, and welcome to BookTrib's 15 Minutes with, a Merrill-Moss Media production. Today we are thrilled to welcome debut author Adele Paula Royce. In her debut novel, The Little Black Book of Suicide Notes, she digs deep into the darkness that can exist in the heart and kind of shines a light on the human experience, which is really refreshing. Adele is a master teacher of Western spirituality and is no stranger to corporate America as well, having secured business relationships for many years. Thank you so much for joining us, Adele. Welcome.
Oh, Beth, thank you so much for having me and allowing me the opportunity to share this story with the world.
Oh, you are so welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Let's talk first about the book, and I have The Little Black Book of Suicide Notes right here. Let's talk first a little bit about it, how you have it set up chapter-wise, and talk about, what you're talking about within the pages.
Well, the way that the book is structured, it's the first part of a planned trilogy, and it's a story about life, death, and rebirth. And book one, The Little Black Book of Suicide Notes, is 27 suicide notes, but not conventional suicide notes. They are not suicide notes per se left behind. They are more spiritual entries, journal entries of a sort, charting the protagonist's spiritual journey through a very dark period, through her life experiences, and how she kind of comes to terms with life and where it's going into the next book from there. So this particular book is broken down into 3 chapters, into 3 parts. The first of the 27 notes are 16 notes, which describe various states of mind, of a hopelessness, and a very kind of dark and dismal corner of existence where lots of people in this world are suffering. And I believe homeopathically could relate to this particular protagonist. Sometimes, as unfortunate as it may sound, misery may just like company. You can notice this invariably in poetry. John Clare's I Am, or I cited in the book Ozymandias by Shelley. These poems all about destruction and the futility of existence is something that is brought to the forefront. And sometimes you can really resonate and relate to the fact that you're not alone in your life situation and experience. And I think this is what's being brought to the forefront. And my intention, obviously, is to bring hope to the hopeless.
Absolutely.
So it's a very humble gesture to get the story told and be out there.
Amazing. And you mentioned this is the first in the series. Can you talk a little bit about what the next ones are that are coming up?
Yes. Well, in and of itself, this first book is broken down into 3 parts. That's just book one. And as I said, the first 16 notes relate to various states of mind. Chapter 2 in the first book is called The 10 Commandments of Suicide. And that is based on biblical scripture, as odd as it may sound. The Bible is one of my favorite pieces of wisdom literature, or I wasn't at the table when they wrote it, so it might just be a great piece of literature. But it's very inspirational for me, and I made a lot of analogies and quoted scripture that would invariably help someone to relate to a life, death, and rebirth situation. And the third and final part is comprised of 1 note, note number 27. And I'm going to leave that to your readers to delve into themselves and find out what happens at the end of the book. The second book is in the works, and we are going to be bringing that out, hopefully, ASAP. Lots of people have been asking for the full story already, so I'll give you a little glimpse of it. The second book is called Notes from Beyond, where I will take you on a journey through death, and the protagonist will be interviewing all of the famous people that have died, intentional and not so famous as well, deaths by their own hand, and find out what's going on in the underworld, find out in essence what these people have to say. And then the third and final part of the trilogy is entitled Coming Back to This Mortal Coil, Coming Back to Life in a New Way. And it's realizing what this life is all about and what the purpose of being in life is for most people. See, it's a very interesting theory, but most people think that we're here to just be in a non-disturbed state, to just avoid pain and to have pleasure, and that's the way it goes. Well, guess what? It's not the way it goes. Inherently, from my experience, my observation, I can tell you that the gist of this life, as hard as it is to reconcile with, is based upon human suffering. It's innate in the condition. It's inherent when you're born. You come out of the womb, if you come out of the womb. And, some people ask me, well, do you choose to come into this world? And I tell them, maybe that's what a stillborn is all about. Maybe the child at that point, the fetus, decides not to come here. It's a very complex issue, but this particular series is all about hope. And what I hope the reader will come away with is hope with double exclamation point. It's truly a story that shows you the opposites of life. I mean, if you look at something like hot, there's cold. Mm-hmm. If you look at happy, there's sad. If you didn't have an opposite of darkness, you wouldn't know light, and vice versa. So what I'm saying here is we're going through a process of darkness, maybe a dark night of the soul, so to speak, of a particular person, and how they find their way into the light, and to allow people who are reading this to understand that they are not alone.
And really what it sounds like too, an educational process as well, learning, finding your way, as you said, the journey, it all seems to be part of it.
It is all part of it, Beth. The journey in and of itself, it's basically an inside job. This all has nothing to do with the external elements of life. They say, be in the world, but not of it. It's a very true statement. You need to kind of find out how this game of life is played, and once you realize that there isn't, don't take this the wrong way, and I hope your audience doesn't as well, but learning that there is no cure for suffering. It's a consistent journey, a consistent bit of courage to keep going step by step by step. Albert Camus, and I quoted this in the book, was, just to brush over it, I don't know if your audience is familiar. He was a French philosopher and writer, and he wrote the Myth of Sisyphus. And that was based on a Greek mythological figure that kept pushing a boulder up and up and up a hill, and every time he came to the top, invariably, the boulder came back down. And this process kept going. So the question then becomes, is life much more than just pushing a boulder up a hill?
Right.
Well, guess what? It is. To quote the movie, it's a wonderful life. You just need a little bit of courage and stamina to hang in there, realize you're not alone, people can relate to it, and find your way out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of, I think, really great advice too for those who just aren't sure where they're at this point, and how to kind of move past it. So definitely with this book, I think that that's something that is really important. What about writing it for you? Did you feel as though you hit any bumps along the way? Was there anything that surprised you a little bit, or, anything
I don't
like
mean
that?
to laugh, before you ask the question, but as soon as you broach the subject, for me, I would not advocate my writing process to the general public, only because I had injured my back. And well, fortunately or unfortunately, the injury brought me to the writing process. And I had some time during my recovery to do the writing. But I would say, for anyone that has any kind of inspiration to bring something and birth something into this world, which is a beautiful process, any beautiful art, any beautiful music, sculpture, writings, books, anything that brings some joy to the universe. It's like the old Nike theory. You just have to do it. It's not something you want to stick in a closet. It's not something that you want to put under, the bed. You want to bring it out. You want to do it. And those action steps are very liberating. It was Viktor Frankl, living in the concentration camps, who said that, it was in his internal freedom that brought him to, that was his own saving grace. And that internal freedom is something that cannot surgically be removed from a person. So what we're doing here is we're trying to take a journey inward and really see what we find. And sometimes, I have to tell you, you do strike gold.
Now, at what point for you did you kind of decide, you mentioned you hurt your back. Prior to that, had you said, I'm going to write a book, or was there something that inspired you out of that moment, or where did this come from for you?
Well, interestingly enough, my educational background is in art. I'm degreed in art history and fine art with a minor in English lit. And I brought that into my corporate life as well. I would sit and teach people about biblical scripture and Jackson Pollock and, all of biblical truth. And somehow the business followed, But I was always involved in some sort. I was in the music industry for a while. I managed the career of a recording artist and found my way into the boardrooms of some of music industry's elite and had a blast. Wow. So I was always involved in the arts, and I just handled my daytime gig as an artist. And it found, a very interesting set of circumstances, because believe it or not, when you're sitting across the table from somebody and you're having some sort of a business meeting, most people just kind of want to be distracted a little bit. So they're in business all day. Yes. So I became the distraction. And a pleasant one at that.
That's great. So then was that kind of what led you to this, to writing the Little Black Book of Suicide Notes?
Well, I would have to say that it's a fine line. People ask me how much is fact, how much is fiction. It's a fine line, and it's a vulnerable place to be. Look, I've had my ups, I've had my downs, and I have had my share of human suffering. And I have found a way out. Yes, we all have. And I found a way out and wanted to share that with people. So the book came about during a period that I felt I needed to put it out there. Bob Dylan said something that I remember, and I paraphrase here, that he sang his songs. He sung his songs because he wanted to hear them. He needed to have them out there. So I wrote this because it needed to be said. And that was the medium for me to bring it to the world. And I am truly a fond proponent of bringing things out into the open, speaking about it. I mean, suicide is in epidemic proportion. And I believe this book will be a spark of light into an otherwise dark and dismal corner of existence.
Wow, that's really powerful. And what about for you? There's, you mentioned you just knew that you had to have it out there, and you found your way, and you wrote it, you got it out. People are reading it and they're loving it. What about those aspiring writers that just aren't too sure how to make that happen? Do you have one small or big or tiny piece of advice that you can share just how to even get started?
I would say follow your inspiration and just do it.
Yep.
And it will take you to places you've never dreamed you can possibly attain. You really need to follow your dream. Just before this chat that we're having, I was checking out some YouTube videos because I was looking for some posts for my Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And I like to look for inspiring posts, and I work with people to help me do that. And I found the Rocky post where he went in his very first, movie, and he ran up the steps, and he had this incredible, it was a visual potpourri of spiritual phenomenon. It just makes you feel good that someone can attain that, So I would say that you need to have some courage to really go out there and do it, and don't give up. Don't give up, because it could be at the midnight hour that something changes in the twinkling of an eye.
Absolutely. Now, before we kind of wrap up here, because we have gotten close to the end, I want to talk quickly about your blog. You discuss, death and suicide, but you also really talk about life's journey, our spiritual paths. What do you hope the message is across your blog? And what do you have for the rest of 2017 coming along for that?
Well, I would say follow your dreams, follow your inspiration, follow your own path, go inside, not outside. You're living in the world, it's a day-to-day existence. You have a job, you go to school, you do what you need to do to survive in this world. Every morning you wake up, and the first thing I would bet most people ask themselves, how am I going to survive today? So my blog is going to be, and my message is going to be all about survival and light and beauty and how to live this life, how we were meant to live it. And we're all going to take that journey together.
Absolutely. Well, I think that it's so important, and I think, here it is again, Little Black Book of Suicide Notes. It's out now, and people really are inspired by it. And I think that you're doing something really great for those that, as you said, they are in a dark corner. So thank you for that, and we look forward to the next books.
Oh, thank you so much, as I say, for allowing me to bring it out there. Absolutely. And those next books are in the works.
Oh, good. Well, we're very excited, and I thank you so much for joining us today. And to everyone watching, thank you so much. And go grab a Little Black Book of Suicide Notes.
Thank you very much, Beth.
Absolutely. Have a great night. Bye, everyone.
Bye.